Welcome to First Level Training, the Firearms Education Center and School of Personal Defense for an online course. This course teaches the basics of firearm safety and handling. At the end of the course, you can take a 20-question test, and if you score 80% or above, then you get a certificate of completion. This is good for you new shooters out there. This way you have some sort of documentation that you've been through some sort of safety training. So, let's get started. What we'll learn today is basic firearms or firearms basics, basic safety, stance, grip, sights, trigger control, breath control, follow through, ammunition, malfunctions, and a gun owner's responsibility. First are the safety rules. Gun safety is everyone's responsibility. And the three most important gun safety rules are: always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. Some of the rules to keep in mind are: know your target and what's beyond. The bullet does just not stop at where you aim it or where you put the bullet. Know how to use your gun safely. Read the entire owner's manual cover to cover with your firearm unloaded with you so you can see all of the different parts and how they work and how to maintain your firearm. Which goes on to the next point. Make sure your gun is safe to operate. The only way you're going to know that is by knowing your gun. So again, read your owner's manual cover to cover. Use only the correct ammunition for your gun. And wear ear and eye protection as appropriate. Never use alcohol or drugs while shooting. And not just street drugs we're talking about. We're talking about cough medicine, antihistamines, stuff for your sinuses, cold medicine, and anything like that that diminishes your fine motor skills and your mental capacity. Make sure you're sharp when you're on the range and you're shooting. And beware that certain types of guns and many shooting activities require additional safety precautions. Now, one of the things I'd like to go over has to do with the other rules of safety, which these are just put in different terms, but you're going to hear them, so I want you to make you familiar with them. The four universal safety rules are: treat all guns as though they are always loaded. Never point your gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard until you are on target and made the decision to shoot. Always be sure of your target and what's beyond, which we went through in the other rules. But one other thing I'd like to add to that. Muzzle control and keeping your finger outside the trigger guard. What's the universal sign for gun? This, right? So if you keep that in mind, every time you pick up a gun, your finger is going to be outside the trigger guard and alongside the frame. So you don't pick up the gun by the trigger and have an accidental discharge. The other thing is muzzle control. Don't point your gun anywhere unless it's on a target. Keep your gun pointed low, be at the low ready position, or keep it outside your body towards the floor. Make sure the gun is always pointed in a safe direction. Too many times at the range, I see people trying to manipulate the mag, and then they turn the gun sideways to drop the mag. Well, that's okay for you, but the guy next to you has a loaded firearm pointed right at him. So manipulate the gun by keeping it pointed downrange, turn it to the side, and pull the magazine out that way. You can use two hands. It's okay. You don't have to be like the movies where everything is done with one hand, you know. Hit the slide, drop the mag, everything is one hand. You don't have to do that. So muzzle control and the sign for gun, always keeping your gun outside the trigger guard and off the trigger. So safety rules, very important. Next we're going to talk about types of pistols. Single action revolver. A single action revolver is this type of gun here, okay, which you have to pull the hammer each time you want to fire a shot. Single action. One hammer pull, one trigger pull, one shot. The other type of revolver is a double action or single and double action. You pull the trigger manipulates the hammer back, the hammer falls forward upon firing the gun, or you can do it like a single action, pull the hammer back and pull the trigger, which makes the trigger very light. So it's like a hair trigger if you do that with a double action, okay? The other types are a semi-automatic pistol, which we just were demonstrating with, okay? So this is a very common pistol. This is a 9mm Glock. Very simple to operate, but there are things that you must know before you go shooting. The parts of the pistol, okay? There's the grip, okay? And the grip consists of a back strap and a front strap. The grip is where the magazine goes into. Now, a magazine is what houses rounds. A clip is what they clip onto. So anything that houses your cartridges is a magazine. From there, we go to the trigger guard and the trigger, okay? The trigger on this one has a safety on it. If you can look real closely, there's this little piece here on it. See if I can get a good picture of that. If you pull the trigger without having your finger totally depressed, it will not move. So there's a trigger safety on this gun. That is the only safety on this particular firearm. You can get other guns that have different types of safeties, grip safety, thumb safety, different things like that. So trigger and trigger guard. Front of the gun, where the barrel comes out, the front of the barrel is the muzzle, okay? The rear of the barrel is the breech. So the front, that's why we talk about muzzle control. We're controlling the muzzle. Anything that's in front of this barrel has the potential to be destroyed, basically. And then we have the barrel itself, which is inside the firearm. It's this thing you see sticking out here. That's what the cartridge actually goes into this chamber, and it gets shot down the bore to fire the shot. Front and rear sights, okay, front and rear sights. The firing pin is inside this particular gun. There is no hammer, okay? So as you can see in this picture, there's a hammer on this pistol. It's more of a 1911 style, which has a hammer. This one does not. Inside the slide is a firing pin, okay? That does what the hammer would do. A pin actually throws forward and fires the shot. So, parts of a semi-automatic pistol. Understanding types of guns and their parts. There are two types of guns, long guns, like rifles, and handguns, like this, okay? To understand gun types, you must first learn the different action types. Now, what is action? Action is what loads, fires, and unloads a firearm, and there are several, but these are not all of them. So, the first one here is a .22 rifle, semi-automatic, which means one trigger pull, one shot fired, and it automatically reloads. The next one down is a bolt action. This is a single action gun where you actually pull a bolt up, bring it back to expel the round and load a new one into the chamber. Lever action. Lever action does the same thing as the bolt. The lever actually expels the old round by pulling the lever down. You pull it back up and it strips off a new round and puts it in the chamber. Pump action shotgun. The forearm actually goes back and forth, pump action, to load, unload the chamber, similar to the lever on our lever gun here, but it's in the forearm. It goes back and forth. Brake action. Brake action is simply that. The barrel portion breaks open from the stock. Okay, so it flips down so you can pull your shotgun shells out or whatever you have. Brake action is in many different types of firearms, pistols, revolvers, and shotguns and rifles. So, you know, it breaks open. Truly a single action type of firearm. And the next one is called a falling block. Falling block is similar to the lever action gun. It has this lever down the bottom, but it's a single shot rifle. You pull the lever down, you pull out the round from the chamber, you put a new one in, you pull the lever back up, and it makes this block move up and down, hence the name falling block. The block actually keeps the pressure from the bullet so it goes forward to fire the shot. So rifling. Rifling is what puts the spin on a bullet, which stabilizes it in flight and consists of lands and grooves. Okay, the lands are the high part. The lands are what actually cut into the bullet to make it spin when you fire the shot. Similar to a football quarterback when he throws a football and he puts a spin on it to make it stable in flight. This is exactly what rifling inside the barrel does for your gun. Now, most people would call this a bullet, okay? You're 25% correct. The bullet is actually only the projectile. The bullet is at the front, which sits in the casing. The casing is the second part. And then you have your powder charge behind the bullet in the casing. And you have your primer, which contains a priming compound that actually burns so you can get the gunpowder charge doing its thing, you know, burning and sending the bullet down the barrel. So cartridge components, we call this a cartridge or a round, okay? The bullet is actually only the projectile. So when you hear people say, give me some bullets, they mean cartridges, okay? There's two different types of cartridges, rimfire and centerfire cartridges. Rimfire cartridges actually have the priming compound in the rim, like on this 22, okay? The rim has the priming compound in it, right in the rim, and that's where the hammer strikes it. Okay, see where the hammer strike is on this, right there, that dimple. So that's a rim fire. A center fire cartridge has a priming compound, and it gets struck by the firing pin in the center of the cartridge, as you can see on this one. Okay, so this cartridge is a pistol caliber 38 special with a center fire cartridge. Okay, so two different types of cartridges. Rimfire and center fire. Here's a picture of 22 caliber rimfire, 22 long, 22 shorts, and then a center fire cartridge. Identifying your cartridge type or cartridge identification. Proper cartridge identification is necessary to ensure that the correct ammunition is loaded into your firearm. Cartridge designation is marked on the pistol, okay, usually on the barrel or on the slide or on the frame, somewhere on the firearm. It'll tell you what it is calibrated for, what caliber it is. Stamped on the head stamp or the cartridge case, okay, like we saw with this 38 Special, is where you find the other information on this. I'm trying to get this real close, see if I can get the light to come up on it, and that didn't happen. But anyway, on the head stamp, which is the end of the cartridge, it tells you what this is. 45 ACP, 32, 44. You'll see something on there that tells you what the cartridge designation is. So it can be marked on the pistol, it's going to be marked on the ammunition, and it's also going to be marked on the box. So when you're buying the ammunition, you actually know what's in it. Also on the factory box, you may see another set of numbers. These are numbers that the factory puts on. They are batch numbers. If anything is to go wrong or have a bad batch of ammo, they have a way of contacting people and saying, hey, this batch of ammo is no good, throw it out. Because it's all about safety. You want to make sure everyone's safe. Plus P and plus P plus cartridges. Some ammunition has a plus P or plus P plus designation, indicating it's loaded to higher pressure levels for better ballistic performance. This higher pressure ammunition must be used only in the guns certified for it, as shown on the barrel, the slide, or the frame. Ammunition storage. Ammunition should be stored in a cool, dry place. Always keep the ammunition in its original factory box or carton so we can identify it. Or if there's anything wrong with it, we know what the batch number is. Store ammunition in a location where unauthorized persons cannot access it. Do not expose ammunition to water, solvents, petroleum products, or other materials that can cause deterioration and malfunction. And wipe fingerprints off the cartridges to avoid corrosion due to the salty residue on our fingers, salt, oils, stuff like that. Don't get into the habit of putting your cartridges in a Tupperware container and then, running your fingers through it. You're just putting all that stuff on the cartridges, and after months or so, you'll start to see deterioration, which now makes the cartridge questionable. Caring for your firearms. Your firearm should be cleaned and lubricated after every shooting session, whether it's 25 rounds, 250 rounds, or 500 rounds. Your firearm should always be checked to ensure it is unloaded before cleaning or any other maintenance is done. And no ammo should be present when the firearm is being cleaned or maintained. Make sure you have your ammunition in a separate room. Get everything ammo-related out of the room that you're working on your firearms with. Unfortunate accidents have happened because people mix their ammo with their guns while they're cleaning. Just keep the ammunition in a separate room when you're cleaning or maintaining your firearms for safety. Ammunition firing sequence. Firing sequence. So the cartridge is in the chamber. The firing pin strikes the primer. The primer ignites the powder. The powder produces a gas, a very hot, high-pressure gas, and it expands rapidly and pushes the bullet out of the barrel. So firing sequence. This is how it all goes down. This is how it all works. And types of cartridge malfunctions. There's three main types of cartridge malfunctions. One is a misfire, one is a hang fire, and the other is called a squib load. So what is a misfire? A misfire is the failure of a cartridge to ignite when the primer or case rim is struck by the firing pin. Some causes could be a defect in the cartridge, which happens a lot on .22 caliber ammunition because of the design, or a defect in the pistol. If your pistol is dirty and the firing pin is not being pushed out because of crud in the firing pin, it's going to get light strikes on the primer and it may not ignite. A hang fire is a perceptible delay in the ignition of a cartridge after the primer or case rim has been struck by the firing pin. This delay may last several seconds. So when a cartridge fails to immediately fire, it won't be known if the problem is a misfire or a hang fire, because a hang fire condition can cause the pistol to fire after a substantial delay. The pistol should be kept pointed in a safe direction, downrange, for at least 30 seconds before the action is open to remove the cartridge. So, a misfire is click, okay? A hang fire is click, bang. Okay, so delayed reaction. If you get a misfire, you should also keep the gun pointed downrange for 30 seconds because you don't know whether it's a hang fire or not. So imagine if you have a hang fire, you click it, you go to clear the gun, and then it goes off with the chamber open. That's recipe for disaster, okay? So hang fire. The other malfunction is called a squib load. A squib load is a cartridge developing less than normal pressure or velocity upon ignition. A squib load can cause the bullet to fail to exit the muzzle and get lodged in the bore. Signs of a squib load are reduced noise, reduced muzzle flash, and reduced recoil, because the bullet has not actually left the barrel. Should stop firing immediately. Hold the gun down range for 30 seconds. Safely open the action and check the bore for obstructions. Checking the bore for obstructions does not mean you point the gun at your face and you look down the barrel. You take the slide off, you remove the barrel, and you look through it to see if there's any obstruction. If there is, you can't shoot it out. Just like watching your Bugs Bunny cartoons where Bugs Bunny sticks his finger in the end of Elmer Fudd's rifle and it blows up in his face, that's exactly what a squib load will do. So now we'll talk about stance. And we're going to use the isosceles position today to talk about proper stance or comfortable stance. The isosceles position is when your front arms make an isosceles triangle, okay, to your target. You're also going to stand with your legs shoulder width apart, which causes an isosceles triangle between your waist and your feet touching the floor. So you're actually using the isosceles triangle twice. So this is stance. This is the isosceles stance, looking at it from the side and looking at it from the top. The elements of the isosceles shooting position are holding the pistol with a proper grip, feet shoulder width apart, weight evenly distributed, your back leaning slightly forward, your head erect, because you want to bring the gun up to your head, not your head down to the gun, your arms fully extended, the pistol brought to eye level, and you should be relaxed and comfortable. Now, what I like to tell people is doing the isosceles stance, and you're bending your knees and leaning forward slightly, is to feel the balls of your feet so you can actually feel them, okay? So when you get recoil, your body's prepared for it. It's like a shock absorber. If you stand straight up and the gun goes off, you're going to go right back, and that's a dangerous situation because now your gun is out of control. So that's the isosceles position. There's also a Weaver stance or the Weaver position. Now, as you can see here, the leg is back and you're standing more of a sideways position, okay? So it's more, you're stepping into the gun. If you were to take the isosceles position and take a step forward, okay, that's the Weaver stance, okay? Now, there's also a modified Weaver stance where some people like to use the isosceles position, but just can't 1 foot back. I think it feels like it gives them more control with the recoil, which are all fine. Today we're going to learn about the isosceles stance because that's going to go in with the whole action that a person's body does in a defensive situation, which is this, okay? When you have somebody confronting you, your body naturally does this, and that's why the isosceles position was developed. Pistol grip. Pistol grip is extremely important so the gun doesn't basically fly out of your hand. You know, upon ignition of the cartridge, it gives you a good shot. So in acquiring a good pistol grip, what I like to do is do the universal sign for gun and grab the pistol that way. You wrap these 3 fingers around the grip in a comfortable handshake, you know, firm handshake. You're not killing it with this hand. You want to just get a good purchase on the gun. Keeping your finger on the side of the frame outside of the trigger guard at all times when you're doing this. You're not on target yet, so your finger should not be in the trigger guard, okay? You want the gun to be high up on the back strap in between your first finger and your thumb, okay? Like you see on the picture here. So you want to get it tight up in there. You also want it to be in line with the bone in your arm. You don't want to have the gun like this because then it's on your thumb. You want it to be actually in line with your arm, okay? So the pistol is gripped with the base of the thumb and lower 3 fingers. The grip pressure is straight to the rear. The trigger finger is alongside the frame. All right, so this is your shooting hand. This is the grip for your shooting hand. We're going to go to your support hand now, which is your opposite hand, depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed. So the other hand comes up and wraps around those 3 fingers that are on the grip, and the fat part of your thumb, this part here, goes in this space on the grip. So you're wrapping your 3 fingers around, you're putting the fat part of your thumb in that space, and you're pointing that left thumb or your support hand thumb forward, all right? This is what's actually going to drive the pistol. This is going to drive your gun. I like to aim with my left thumb because I know wherever that gun is being brought out to, that's my target area, okay? Even without a sight picture and sight alignment, I can pretty much say that that's what I'm pointing at, that's where I'm going to shoot, okay? So both thumbs facing forward on the side. I see a lot of people gripping the gun with the thumb under. Okay, what does that do? That leaves a big hole here on the grip where you're not getting a good clamp on it. Okay, so I like having both thumbs facing forward like this on the gun rather than tucking that one under. It pulls this fat part of your hand off of the grip here. So I like to have it nice and tight in there. And also I like to have my trigger finger and that pointing thumb to be sandwiched in between the frame of the gun. This way when you present the firearm, you have complete control. You've got it from both sides, not only on the grip, but on the body where the slide is. Okay? So that's grip. We're going to talk about dominant eye for a minute. Your dominant eye is the eye you use to aim with when you shoot. One way to find out what your dominant eye is, you make a triangle with your hands like this, and you look through that triangle. You find a spot on the wall, and you look through the triangle like this, okay? Then you bring it to your face, and whichever eye it comes to is most likely your dominant eye, okay? And it doesn't mean you're right eye dominant if you're right-handed or left eye dominant if you're left-handed. It could be any combination of the two, and that's okay, so long as you're aiming with the same dominant eye every single time. Consistency is what we're going for here. So sight alignment. Sight alignment refers to the proper relationship of the pistol's front and rear sights. So what do you want to see? You want to see the post in the center, okay? And the tops of the rear sights, okay? So these are the rear, the side ones, and that's the front of the gun. That's your front sight. You want to have equal height and equal light, okay? So basically you're making the gun level and plumb, if you know anything about carpenter terms, okay? So you have your sight picture, alignment rather, you're aligning your sights. So you have your gun level to your target, bringing it up to your eyes, level to your target, and also not pointing, right or left, so it's straight on your target. The other part of aiming is sight picture. Now you take that sight alignment and you want to put it on your target. So there's two ways that you can align your sight picture, okay, which is the 6 o'clock hold. The 6 o'clock hold, you're actually seeing the center of your target. Center hold, you're actually covering that up. So your front sight is actually covering the center of the target. So that's sight picture. So sight alignment and sight picture coincide with each other, and it's all about aiming your gun. Front sight focus. When shooting a pistol with iron sights, okay, which are these types of pistols have iron sights on them, unless you've bought yourself a red dot or a scope for your pistol or something crazy like that. You want your visual focus to be on the front sight. Okay, you always want to know where that front sight is pointing. This will leave the rear sight a bit fuzzy and your target. Okay, but if you're not focused on your front sight, you focus on the target or your rear sights, you're not going to hit your target accurately. So, establish proper sight alignment and sight picture, and put your sight focus on the front sight. Trigger control. Trigger control is the proper method of activating the trigger. The trigger should be between the fingertip and the first knuckle of your index finger, your first joint. The trigger should be squeezed rearward in a smooth, continuous motion. I don't like to use the word squeezed. I like to use the word pressure. Just pressure, 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 bang until it pops, okay? The trigger squeeze should produce a surprise break as the shot is being fired for you new shooters. So when that trigger breaks, you want to be at your most stable point, okay? So arc of movement. Arc of movement refers to the unavoidable motion of a pistol held in the shooting position. It's caused by breathing. It's caused by our muscles contracting. It's caused by movement of our legs and feet. So we try to reduce the arc of movement, especially when you're breaking the shot. Breath control has a lot to do with arc of movement. Breath control minimizes the body's movement produced by breathing, which can impair good shooting. Take a breath before each shot and let it out. And then simply at the bottom of your breath, stop while you're firing the shot. So it's going to look like this. It's going to look like bang. Okay? Avoid holding your breath for too long because this can cause tremors, but we don't want you to hold your breath. That's taking a breath and holding it and then shooting. That's not going to give you consistent results every time because you want to be relaxed. Are you relaxed when you're holding your breath? Probably not. So, bottom of your breath, just stop as you're breaking the trigger, okay? Maintaining your proper stance and your proper grip, okay? And sight alignment and sight picture. This is critical right now because you want everything, or you want the stars to align right here, okay? Hold control allows the shooter to maintain proper sight alignment and sight picture while firing the shot. A proper grip is critical to hold control. So as we spoke about the grip portion of it, now, especially when you're breaking your shot, it's extremely important. One goal of hold control is to minimize the arc of movement. So again, the breath, the hold, everything, you want to be at your most stable point. So one goal of hold control is to minimize the arc of movement because that's when everything's going down. Your shots, you're going to break your shot. And that's when you have to be your most stable. Follow through. Follow through is the continuation of the fundamentals of shooting through and immediately after firing the shot. Follow through enables the shooter to maintain and continue the shooting fundamentals before, during, and after the shot. What do I mean by that? Okay, so you've got your proper stance, grip, bottom of your breath, the gun goes off, and now what does it do? It wrecks everything. You have to bring your gun back on target, sight alignment and sight picture, and your stance and your grip, and ready for the next shot. That's follow through. So after you shoot the pistol, okay, after you take your shot, bang, you want to come right back down on it. Okay? Follow through. It's very important. It's like following through when you're doing your golf swing or swinging a baseball bat or kicking a football. You don't just stop when the shot is fired. You follow through, get back on target. Shooting fundamentals. The two most important shooting fundamentals are aiming, which is sight alignment and sight picture. That's one. And then trigger control. That trigger pressure, pressure, pressure until the gun goes off. So you have your gun up here and trigger control, sight alignment, and sight picture are all happening right when the shot breaks, okay, with no movement. You don't want to jerk your trigger. You don't want to pull it. You don't want to push it, okay? Just some things to keep in mind. Personal hygiene. Practice good hygiene. Good hygiene practices can reduce the risk of lead exposure. Don't eat, drink, or smoke while shooting, as this makes the swallowing of lead more likely. Wash your hands, face, and neck with soapy cold water before taking breaks or when you finish shooting for the day. Shower after shooting, and if showers are not available in your shooting range, which I don't know any ranges that have showers in the range, it's recommended that you shower when you return home. Get all that particulate off your body. Change your clothes and your shoes before leaving the range if possible. What I do is I usually have a shirt on that I'm going to take off after I get out of the range. I don't usually change my shoes until I get home, but I don't wear those shoes in the house. I don't track all that stuff because all that lays on the shooting floor when you're in an indoor range, and it goes up and in all the cracks and crevices in your shoes. You walk around the house with those shoes on, guess what's going to be in your house now? So personal hygiene is important. Gun owner's responsibilities. It's the gun owner's responsibility to store, operate, and maintain his or her firearms safely. It is the gun owner's responsibility to ensure that Unauthorized and untrained individuals cannot gain access to his or her firearms. It's also the gun owner's responsibility to learn and follow all applicable laws that pertain to the purchase, possession, transportation, and use of his or her firearms in his or her jurisdiction. When people practice responsible gun ownership and follow all gun safety rules all the time, firearms are safe. So what we've learned today, this is what we've gone over. We went over basic firearm safety and handling, which consisted of basic firearm safety. Remember, keep the gun pointed in a safe direction with your finger off the trigger and unloaded. Always check every firearm you pick up as if it were loaded and check it. Do a safety check on every firearm that you ever pick up now in the rest of your life. Always do a safety check on it. And remember what your target is and that there's something behind that. Okay, so know your target and what's beyond. Stance, proper stance, the isosceles position. Be relaxed, be comfortable, get a good stance. Your grip, make sure you have a good grip on the gun. Again, you're covering all that surface on the grip of the gun, holding it steady with a comfortable but steady grip. Sight alignment and sight picture, keeping your sights aligned and that aligned on your target. Trigger control, breath control, and follow through. Again, that's almost one continuous motion right there. And when you go to the range and you practice, you should be practicing these in that order. So say to yourself, when you're practicing with your gun, you're going to go stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, breath control, follow through, back on your target, okay? The more times you do that, you'll get muscle memory. It will be like driving a car. You won't even think about it, okay? The more you do it, the more you'll get comfortable with it. And you should learn to dry fire your firearms. You new shooters out there that just purchased guns, check your owner's manual. Make sure they're dry fire safe. Dry fire simply means that you're firing it without any ammunition in it. So you want the trigger to reset. So when you fire the shot, you feel that back wall and that break. And then you're purchasing the gun properly, okay? And you have a good stance. So dry fire practice is very important for keeping and maintaining your shooting skills. Thank you for your participation in this course. You are encouraged to continue your education and training and to preserve the American tradition of safe and responsible gun ownership. Remember, this is a beginner's course. This is just to tell you how to handle a firearm. Training is essential. You must get training beyond just this course. So now if you're ready to take the test, you can click on the test button and go through the 20 questions. They're 5 points each. Get a score of 80% or higher, and then you can print out a certificate of completion, which is for firearms safety and handling. So good luck and be well. And from first level training, the Firearms Education Center and School of Personal Defense, be smart, be educated, and be safe. Thanks.